UK right now is being called the Western capital of Sharia law. So just simply looking at the numbers and looking at the countries that have adopted Sharia law, it's growing exponentially, and it's even coming to the United States of America. It's happening here in the way of establishing Sharia councils, what they call councils here in the United States.
Get ready to strap in. It's going to be a heck of a ride. It's like drinking from a fire hose. Never a dull moment, but yes, you'll hear the stories you won't hear anywhere else, and we appreciate you being here with us for them today. I'm Justin Barclay. Now, welcome in today our guests with a very important conversation, one that I think some folks may be, I don't know, intentionally sleeping on, but there is a definite topic, subject of conversation that I think, with everything else that's happening in the world right now, is getting swept under the rug. Folks, today's guest is no stranger to standing in the fire. He's a pastor, a missionary, and a man who's been on the front lines, literally, in some of the most dangerous places on earth, including radical Islamic strongholds in Nigeria. But today, he's sounding the alarm on something that's happening much closer to home. Brad Brandon is the founder of Across Nigeria. It's a boots-on-the-ground ministry reaching persecuted Christians and unreached Muslim communities. And he's also the author of a powerful new piece in the Daily Wire, The Global Rise of Sharia Law and Mamdani's Intifada Silence. And folks, if you think Sharia law is just some sort of far-off foreign issue, you may want to think again, because Brad's here to expose how it's creeping into the West and what we need to do about it before it's too late. It's no longer a matter of time of if, it's when, and that time here is now. I know you've been ringing the alarm on this. Walk us through what's going on and why folks need to be aware.
The UK right now is being called the Western capital of Sharia law. So just simply looking at the numbers and looking at the countries that have adopted Sharia law, it's growing exponentially, and it's even coming to the United States of America. It's happening here in the way of establishing Sharia councils, what they call councils here in the United States. So it's a big problem, and it's a growing problem, and we should either address it now before it's too late. That's my feeling on it.
Brad with us. Let me ask you, Brad, because I'm watching this play out, and some of the questions that have come into my mind as you making some great points here. We've seen there's this place in Texas that they wanted to have a full-on a Muslim and possibly Sharia law in that area. This was a big, almost like a town that they wanted to build there.
Yeah.
We've seen in Florida that they've made some pretty bold statements about taking over in some areas there. But they've got the mayor in New York City. We've got the mayor in Minnesota as the latest that are popping up. And you're talking to somebody who's in Michigan and maybe a couple hours away from Dearborn.
That's right.
We've got some places that are already moving in this direction.
Yeah, and you mentioned Texas, where they're basically setting up an Islamic community in the heartland of Texas. Now Texas is pushing back on that, as you'd expect Texas to do. But there are places in the United States that are not pushing back, that are welcoming this in. One of those is New York City. I'm in Connecticut right now, so I'm not far from New York City. And Mamdani has basically refused to denounce the motto, globalize the Intifada. Well, when you break that down, what does that mean? Intifada means the installation of Islamic rule. And part of Islamic rule is Sharia law. You can't get away from it. So you have the Democratic mayoral candidate who is refusing to denounce the idea of welcoming Islamic rule and Sharia law into New York City, one of the biggest city in the United States. And as you mentioned, we have it happening in Minnesota, and it's certainly happening in Michigan. That's something I've been watching for a long time, as you mentioned, Dearborn. I mean, it's here, and parts of the country are pushing back. Right now, there's 16 states that have passed legislation to ban Sharia law. That's how serious this has gotten. Our legislators, our state legislators, are looking at what's happening in Europe right now, and they're saying we've got to put a stop to this before it's too late. So they're passing legislation. 16 states have, and another 24 states have introduced bills that ban Sharia law to one degree or another. So it's not, as I mentioned in the article on the Daily Wire, it's not just hyperbole, it's not just hysterics that people are talking about this. It's not Islamophobia. These are facts. These are things that are happening, and people who are awake and watching are seeing it and realizing that we need to put a stop to this. And it seems like the rest of the country is just asleep and doesn't really care about it.
Let's break down for some of these folks. And by the way, the piece is in the Daily Wire. If you want to go read it, the global rise of Sharia law and Mamdani's Intifada silence. 35 of the 195 countries in the world have incorporated this Sharia law in their legal systems. Brad Brandon with us again across Nigeria. I want to talk about your organization too here in a second, but what is, let's break down so that folks can really understand this. What is Sharia law?
Yeah, so Sharia law is the implementation of the rule of the Quran. And it's structured this way. There are Islamic scholars called fiqhs, and they are the ones who establish the rulings. Those rulings come through what is called ijmas, and that's the consensus of the Islamic scholars. So they're the ones who make the decision. Now, it's pretty subjective because if you live in a country that is radicalized or that has welcomed radical Islam, well, then those fiqhs and those ijmas are going to follow fundamental beliefs of the Quran, which include beheadings, honor killings, and also amputations, genital mutilation. I mean, these are horrible things to talk about, but
We got
these are
we,
realities.
we got to break down some of these because I don't think the average American knows what some of these are. So beheadings, I think you can understand because we've seen some of that in the news. If you go back, through the last 20 years or whatnot in our war on terror and whatnot, we'd seen those things happen. We've also seen that lately happen with attacks on Christians in some of these Muslim countries. But what is when you come to talk about the honor killings? I don't think people really understand just how evil some of this is.
Yeah,
What's an
so honor killings are basically anybody who brings dishonor to the Muslim family under certain criminal laws, under the Sharia, certain um, uh, crimes under Sharia law, they can legally be killed. I work predominantly in northern Nigeria. 12 states in northern Nigeria have implemented Sharia law, fundamentalist form of Sharia law. They regularly practice the killing of what would be called apostasy, which would be leaving the Islamic faith. That is a crime punishable by death under Sharia law. We deal with that all the time. I live and operate most of the year in areas that are controlled by Sharia law. And we regularly have people coming to us to escape their own families who are trying to hunt them down and kill them. Because under Sharia law, the only way to bring honor back to your family, if somebody leaves your family, or even if your daughter marries a non Muslim, that is another infringement that is a crime punishable by death, an honor killing. It's called Arim al Sharif, which means honor killing. And they will literally kill you because you've left the faith. Also, blasphemy is another crime that is punishable. The punishments are called haduds in the Sharia law, and those haduds include beheading, stoning to death, and stealing can be a crime that is punishable by amputation. I've run into numerous times in northern Nigeria where I'll run into somebody who literally has no hands. Both of their hands have been amputated
Mm.
because they were caught stealing. Now you're talking about living, this is in a country where people are just barely surviving. There's barely enough food to eat. And if you get caught stealing food, that can be a crime that is punishable by amputation. I met a guy who had both of his hands amputated. I asked him what happened, and it wasn't some accident. He looked at me and he said, all he had to say was Sharia law. He had been caught stealing as a young man. They took one of his hands. And then as an older man, his family was starving and he was caught stealing food and they amputated his other hand. These are realities that are happening around the world. This is not stuff of movies. This is stuff that I live regularly in northern Nigeria.
I hate to even think about this stuff, and I think most of us do. We live here in a very, sort of a very kind of almost like a bubble, very
It
protected from
is.
the realities of how harsh the world is in a lot of these places. But it's at our doorstep. In fact, some would say it's not just at the doorstep. I mean, it's making its way inside right now. They're seeing that type of thing happen in the UK and other places and parts of Europe. What's the answer on this? We've got cultures clashing here at a rate that is it's been really exponentially sped up recently because of I think there are outside forces that want to push us together to cause and create chaos. But what is the solution behind this? Is there anything that we can do? Obviously, stand up and talk about these things that are going on, and it just seems like it's so evil that it has a creeping effect to it, that it plays the long game.
Absolutely. Islam is great at the long game. Right now, the fastest growing religion in the United States is Islam, and it does play the long game, just as you mentioned. That's exactly what happened in the UK. I'll give you an example of that. Right now, there's about 85 councils in the UK, Sharia councils. And what they have done is used the UK's own legislation against itself. I'll give you an example of that. Back in 1995, and then it was updated again in 2000, the UK passed an arbitration act, what's called the Arbitration Act. And basically, what it did was allow the rulings under these Sharia councils to be counted as precedent in British court rulings. So the British courts are now consulting with the Sharia councils in making their decisions. They're using them as precedent. And that is one way how Sharia is just slowly creeping its way in little by little by little. We've even seen that here in the United States. For the most part, when Sharia law is enacted here in the United States, and it's happening, it's in Texas, it's in Minnesota, it's in Michigan, the Sharia councils are being formed here in the US. But as of now, they're operating, under the local, state, and federal laws. They're subjugated to the local, state, and federal laws. But it's being challenged. In 2009, there was a New Jersey Superior Court judge that consulted a family's imam in an abuse case, and the imam basically said, well, under Sharia law, a woman's testimony is worth half that of a man's testimony, and that's true.
Wow.
That's one of the human rights infringements of Sharia law, and why Sharia law should be completely watched if you're at all concerned about human rights. And so this imam said, we shouldn't believe this woman because the man has twice the testimony power of this woman. The judge ruled against a protective order for this woman. Now, the state Supreme Court came in and overturned that. So it ended up being a good thing. But it just shows the point, the volition of Sharia law to push itself into the current system and work its way into the existing process and use the system that we have and our laws against us. And there's a few other cases around the United States where that has been challenged. So it's not Sharia law, and those proponents of Sharia law are not satisfied to just sit back and say, okay, we'll work under the local, state, and federal laws. There's a lot of religious organizations that do those kinds of things. Sharia law is a different animal because it challenges, it believes most Muslims believe that Sharia law is better than, superior to the local, state, and federal laws. So they would rather see that implemented. In fact, in that Daily Wire article, I linked a YouTube video where they went kind of a man on the street kind of thing, and they went through my home state of Minnesota. They went through Minneapolis and were asking Muslims what they believed about Sharia law, and it is stunning to see how they believe. They believe that the Constitution should be dismantled, that Sharia law should be put in its place. These are people who are living here in the United States, and they're openly on the street telling a complete stranger that they believe Sharia law is superior to all other laws. And it's really a human rights issue because the losers under Sharia law usually are women and children. Most of the fiqs are male, so it's a male dominated operation or process. And women's rights are constantly under attack under Sharia law. If you're looking at divorce cases, a woman needs to jump through hoops and can barely get a divorce approved by a Sharia court. A man can just say the word divorce 3 times and he can unilaterally divorce his wife. Those are human rights infringements. So if you're at all concerned about human rights, which the left in this country seems to tout that, and that's what they say, their actions speak louder than their words. If you're at all concerned about human rights, you should be concerned about the implementation of Sharia law, even if it claims that it's operating under local, state, and federal laws.
Let's watch this. This is a video, one that I mentioned earlier. This is a man in Florida talking about, they're bragging about how many churches that they bought up there.
We are buying these churches.
This is Florida.
We bought 3 churches so far, converted them to masjids, and now we have one we are buying with a school to make it, because we have to serve the same people. The people who were part of that community, one day they will be Muslims. So we'll make it into a masjid and an Islamic school for our children and their children, inshallah. 100 years ago, they invaded the Muslim world and they built missionary schools and destroyed Islamic schools and masjids. Today, we bring the favor back, turn their churches into masjids and their schools into Islamic schools, bring the light of Islam to here.
Wow, that's really, if you watch just the beginning of it, I'm talking about, well, we're building churches because we want to serve the communities. That's one thing. But then when you get that last piece there where he talks about, 100 years ago they did this and now we're doing it. This to me has more of an invasion. It has more of a feel of I hate to say, I think about a holy war, but that's what it sounds like. Should Americans be alerted? Should they be alarmed? That's Florida, by the way. Texas, they're doing this in red states particularly.
Yeah.
What is going on here?
Yeah, if you talk to the people at the top, it's really like any organization. The Muslims on the bottom, I mean, most Muslims are peaceful people. I have friends of mine who are Muslims. We work with Muslims in northern Nigeria. 90% of Muslims are peaceful people who just want to raise their family, take care of themselves, live their life, and do the best they can. The problem is because of the massive growth of the Islamic population and Muslim population, that last 10% that's radicalized really is leading the charge in things like you just showed in this video. And they view it as an invasion. They look at it as we were invaded by Christianity, which is not the case historically speaking, but they view it that way. And so now we're going to go into the Western world and we are going to take over. Their end goal is really the implementation of Islamic rule. Those are the leaders at the top who are saying that. Those are the imams. Those are the fiqhs in the Sharia courts that are saying that. Their goal is really to implement Sharia rule and Islamic rule wherever they go. It's happening in the UK. There's no question about that. Just look at Sweden. Sweden has had beheadings. Sharia law has been implemented in places of Sweden. There are no-go zones in Sweden and also in London as well, but more so in Sweden, where law enforcement and emergency services cannot enter into the no-go zones because they're controlled by Muslims, and those areas are ruled under Sharia law. So there's places where law enforcement cannot go in the streets of Sweden because of the rule of the Islamic rule, and with that comes Sharia law. So it is happening. It is happening. The Europe is the canary in the coal mine. Just look at what's happening in Europe. That is their model. That is their goal for the United States, and it is happening. And it's sad to say that most of us here in the U.S. are asleep and allowing it to happen.
I have some friends who just got back from a trip. They went a couple of different places in Europe, but Spain, I think, was one of the bigger ones. And they went around, and one of the reasons why they're going, it's so sad, but it's true. They said what part of it is to see it before it's gone, and I hate to think of it that way, but they just they say you won't believe some of the things that you're seeing here, and it's all through different parts of Europe. So let me ask. I mean, we asked about what's the answer here in America, but I would include Europe. Let's just say the West. What is the answer? It seems like these people are, first of all, they're having children. More of them are having children. Many of the culture, the folks, young kids in the West have been indoctrinated by the schools, so they don't want to have kids, or they aren't having kids until much later, and just sheer numbers. As I mentioned, the slow sort of churn here. Eventually, it can't be overtaken unless you reverse those things in culture.
I think it's a multifaceted answer to your question, but one of them has to be people raising awareness and talking about this, and really caring. In the West, we are extremely tolerant, and particularly the Judeo-Christian culture that we have is very tolerant. And I know there's people in this country that would argue that. But Christianity is extremely tolerant. And I'm a Christian, and I look at it and say, I'm tolerant, but my tolerance ends when other people's rights are being infringed upon, and other people are being put at risk, and other people's lives are in danger. Then the tolerance ends. And I think that's what we have to get hold of. For some reason, we think that by talking about Sharia law or drawing attention to it and talking about the issues that we're talking about right now is somehow is Islamophobic. That's not the case. This is a human rights issue, and my tolerance ends when human rights are infringed on. That's where I draw the line. I mean, if you look back in the UK has a great legacy of ending slavery. You look at William Wilberforce, he almost
Yeah.
single-handedly ended slavery in the UK.
Hmm.
He was not tolerant of the current system. He was not tolerant of what was happening, and so he went in there and made change. If he was tolerant, then he would have just sat back and said, "Well, that's the culture that I'm in. Well, let's just let slavery continue." He was intolerant of injustice. And I think we have to start seeing Sharia law and the implementation of Sharia law and Islamic rule as an injustice. It's not Islamophobic to say that. It is because it's happening all around the world. We can cite thousands of examples where Sharia law and the countries that implement Sharia law are attacking human rights, and that's happening. Nearly 35 of the countries that have implemented Sharia law are on the human rights watch list at the highest risk level. Sharia countries make up half of the countries of particular concern, according to the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. These numbers should be telling us that Sharia law is an attack on human rights, and that's where my tolerance ends. So I think becoming intolerant of the infringement of human rights is where we need to start.
Well, this is a fantastic jumping off point for folks. I highly recommend reading the article, but not only that, you do some great work with your organization. Tell us a little bit about Across Nigeria and what you all are working on there.
Yeah, so across Nigeria, you can visit our website at acrossnigeria.org. But we basically go into northern Nigeria, which is, as I mentioned, 12 states in northern Nigeria are controlled by Sharia law. These are areas where ISIS controls most of the territories that we work in. Boko Haram controls a good portion of the territories that we work in. We go into those areas and we basically, what we show the love of Jesus Christ. We help Muslim communities. We bring them water where there's shortages of clean drinking water. We start schools in their communities so that their children can learn to read and write English. And we just love them and teach them the love of Christ. On top of that, we also help the persecuted in northern Nigeria. There is a huge persecuted population in northern Nigeria because of the conditions. As I mentioned, the doctrine of Rin Asharif, which is an honor killing. And when somebody converts from Islam to Christianity, their families often seek to kill them. So we go into those areas and extract them out, bring them to our refugee facility, and we help them restart their life. They literally come to us with nothing. The government in those states have taken their properties, frozen their bank accounts, seized their businesses, and in even some cases have taken their children. So they literally come to us with the clothes on their back, and we see it as our job to help them restart their lives. And we help communities of persecuted Christians who can't get medical care because they're Christians. They can't even go to the market and buy things in the market because they're Christians. They don't have anywhere to send their children to school because all the schools are Islamic schools in these areas, and their children can't attend because they're Christians. So we help Christians and we love Muslims. That's the basic gist of what we do.
That is, it sounds like an incredible cause. Brad, you just mentioned some of the things that I think, in relation to what is happening with Christians all across the world. And it's just, the days that we're in right now, we're seeing attacks here at home on churches, but I think that's just very sort of barely scratches the surface on the things that the churches and individuals see across the world, and particularly in places like this. What a tough assignment that must be to protect those folks, but at the same time, to love some of the folks that are responsible in some ways. It's got to be a very tough sort of line to walk there.
It is. It's a gray area. It's a difficult. There's often difficult decisions that have to be made. I'll go into a village where they're implementing a hadud, where they're, caning somebody 40 times because they stole something or got caught doing drugs or something. And you kind of have to overlook that because the overall mission that we have is bigger than that. And so you have to be tolerant in some ways of the things that are happening in these areas and in these states and in the region. A lot of times we end up building relationships with Muslims who have a history of violence towards Christians. Many of the chiefs and leaders of the Fulani Muslim communities that we minister to have a history of persecution against Christians and massacres that have happened against Christians in northern Nigeria. Last Christmas was the Christmas massacre, where there were 200 Christians that were killed on Christmas morning.
Mm.
Just about 4 weeks ago, there were 150 Christians that were massacred by Fulani Muslims. We have to go into those areas, and even though they hate us sometimes and show violence towards Christians, we believe that the love and the power of Christ is greater than all of that. And that's what we believe in. That's what we practice. The Bible talks about, and again, I'm a Christian, so I follow the Bible. The Bible talks about the fruit of the Spirit, and there's a reason why the Bible calls it fruit. Fruit is the reproductive organ of a plant. If you cut open an apple, inside of it are seeds. And so we believe it's our job to be filled with the Spirit, produce the fruit of the Spirit, and reproduce faith in the lives of people around us. And that's the tenet of what we do it across Nigeria.
It's so interesting because this you're like right in it. I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road, and the stuff what you read about in the Bible. This is it, and I can't imagine. It's so easy to say, well, those people hate us and they're killing us. And I mentioned earlier, this seems like a bit of a holy war that's happening. But the truth is, whether it's here or there or wherever we're facing these things, the Lord wants those people saved too,
That's right.
and they're important to Him.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you sit down and you talk with a Muslim, you stop seeing them as a Muslim with that label, and you see them as a friend or a grandfather or a father or mother. You see them as a person. What you quickly realize is that their circumstances, the horrible socioeconomic conditions of the area, the region that they live in, has often driven them to do what they do, and they feel as though they have no other options. That's really the power behind the schools that we start in Muslim communities, where we teach their children to read and write English, which is like having a college education in northern Nigeria. But what we're doing is giving them options. People often resort to violence because they feel they have no other options. Even the crisis between Fulani herders, I'm sure your viewers have heard of that, and Christian farmers in northern Nigeria, that often makes the news. The reason why it's a crisis is because of the shortage of areas for their cattle to graze in. And so the cattle go on to Christian farms and eat the crops, and the Christians come out and chase the cows off of their farm. And then the Muslims come in and retaliate. And through that conflict, it ends up being a massacre. That's usually what the massacres are about in northern Nigeria. Now, it's different when you're talking about Boko Haram and ISWA, but even then, I've talked to some Boko Haram soldiers, and I've asked them, what compelled you to join Boko Haram? And they've told me, they said, Boko Haram provides stability. It provides a community that I can belong to. It provides a source of income. They provide food. This is in an area where most people make $1 a day. And every act of violence, Boko Haram will pay anywhere from $50 to $100 to, blow up a bus or a car or something like that. Boko Haram pays very well. That's a small fortune to some of these people in northern Nigeria. So when you see it like that, all of a sudden, I'm not excusing it. I don't agree with it. I think it's horrible and awful. But all of a sudden, you begin to understand these people are trying to survive. And Boko Haram provides a place, an avenue for them to survive, whereas else they may die and their family may die with them. So when you see it like that, I think it takes on a whole nother dimension. It's not just as simple as, oh, these are radicalized Muslims and they want to kill all Christians. It's not that. I wish it was that easy. It's not that easy. When you get down, boots on the ground where we are, in with the people, getting to know them, living in their communities, speaking their language, it takes on a whole nother dimension.
Brad, thank you for shining the light on all of this. Obviously, you have a wealth of knowledge right in the middle of all of this, and I guarantee that we'll want to catch up and maybe continue the conversation in the days ahead, because this is a story that continues to develop. But in the meantime, I know there's going to be somebody that listened to this today and said, I have a heart to maybe help out there if I can in some ways. How can people help with your mission there and across Nigeria?
Yeah, that's a great question. Acrossnigeria.org. I think the thing that we ask people to do the most is pray for us. It's really the prayers of our supporters and our followers that sustain us. The best way to stay up to date on praying for us is go to our website, acrossnigeria.org. We put out a weekly email update where we, basically publish the latest of what's happening in northern Nigeria and what's happening with across Nigeria and what we're doing. All we need is your name and your email, and we'll send you, just once a week, we'll send you an email update and to let you know what's going on. So at least people, our followers, know how to pray for us. And then I think the last thing is we certainly need donations and funds to be able to do the projects that we do. You can do that at the website, acrossnigeria.org. There's a Give Now button in the upper right-hand corner. Just click on that and give whatever God lays on your heart.
Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Obviously, another one of these stories, Brad Brandon, across Nigeria, that we're digging into. There's so much, I think, in this episode. People are going to want to maybe even go back and listen to it again. Share it with someone who you think needs to hear this story, may even have a heart for that mission there. But, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate you. I'd love to have you back sometime.
Hey, thanks, Justin. I'll come back anytime.
You got it. God bless. Welcome to the world of Q Broadcast. Hey, it's Justin. It's the future of home entertainment. It's here today. Now you can say farewell to cable and other streaming services that limit your options and open the door to unlimited possibilities. Q Broadcast gives you the power to choose what you want to watch, when you want to watch, and where you want to watch your favorite shows. In sports, on up to 5 devices simultaneously. Q Broadcast brings together all your favorite streaming services in one place for only $2 a day. That's live TV, movies, news, and classic TV series. Pay-per-view for only $2 a day. You can't get a cup of coffee for that. That's Q Broadcast, and you can do it today. They make it a breeze for you and your family to find something you all love. You can take Q Broadcast wherever you go. Start watching on your phone and seamlessly continue to your TV, iPad, laptop. With Q Broadcast and the app, you can watch on any device, whether you're on the road or flying to your next destination. Q Broadcast is compatible with most streaming devices and smart TVs, so you can enjoy your favorite shows and movies on the big screen. And for all the sports fans, Q Broadcast offers your favorite college and professional sports from around the world, providing the ultimate sports experience. Q Broadcast is the future of home entertainment. So say goodbye to cable and the limitations. Embrace the endless possibilities with Q Broadcast. Upgrade to Q Broadcast today and start enjoying the freedom to watch what you want, when you want, and where you want for only $2 a day. Q Broadcast. It changes everything. Go to qwithjustin.com to find out more and get your 15-day trial started today. That's qwithjustin.com. I got good news and bad news. The good news is it's a deal and a steal for you. The bad news is I missed out. Well, I just bought a bunch of bedding. I just bought a bunch of new pillows and sheets and things from Mike Lindell at My Pillow, and I didn't get this good of a deal. For a limited time, Mike is selling his pillows, the classic, $14.88. That's it. The My Pillow, the thing that started it all, just $14.88. He had one of these big box stores that canceled on him. You know how they do. Well, this is actually your win. It's a win for everyone. A win for Mike because he can unload the pillows at a great price. It's a win for you because you get a good deal, and you can help support this program at the same time. Get your pillows for $14.88 when you go to mypillow.com/Justin. Use code Justin at checkout. That's mypillow.com/Justin. And while you're there, shop for all kinds of great things. I love the towels. The best towels I've ever used in my entire life because Mike's got all kinds of great goodies.